What's going on, everyone? Mario here with Nickel Prints, and in today's video we're going to be talking about one of the most versatile ways to print just about anything.
Anything?
If you're starting a t-shirt business, if you're starting a crafting business, if you're starting a business that has anything to do with printing, then you are going to want to offer sublimation. Now, this is just one example. This is a metal print. As you can see in the front, it has some pretty vibrant colors, and in the back, it's just plain. Now, as I mentioned earlier, sublimation is one of the most versatile ways of printing. You can literally print on just about anything. So aside from that metal print I just showed you, you can also print on things like tumblers, which is actually probably one of the most printed things out there. If you go ahead and you look on Etsy and you search up tumblers, the majority of them are going to be sublimated tumblers. You are going to have a lot of handcrafted ones and some that have to do with different printing techniques. But aside from tumblers, you can of course also do t-shirts, you can do mouse pads, pillow covers, blankets, and there's also a bunch of different unique items, such as the one that we're going to be sublimating today, which is a pair of boxers. So in today's video, we're going to cover everything that you need to know about sublimation. This is going to be a crash course on sublimation. I'm going to explain to you exactly what it is, how it works, its limitations, its pros, its cons, talk about a few hacks, a few different ways to make money. So if that's something that interests you, if you've been wanting to learn a little bit more about sublimation, or if you're just starting out in the game, or if you're just looking for some extra information about sublimation, then make sure you check out this video all the way through, because it's going to be jam-packed with some pretty helpful and unique information. This is all coming from first-hand experience, and I've been experimenting with it a lot in the last few years.
This guy knows what he's talking about.
So if that's something that interests you, then also make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. So to start, what is sublimation? Sublimation, simply put, for us as t-shirt printers, as crafters, it's pretty much just another way of printing. So for this, you're going to need a special kind of printer and a special kind of ink. You can't just use any printer, you can't just use any home printer, but you are able to convert a home printer. Some of the most commonly converted printers are always going to be the Epson. That's the one that you're going to see all the time, primarily the EcoTank. Now, while you can go ahead and go the converted printer route, you can also purchase a printer that's just ready to go. It is a dedicated sublimation printer and also has warranty. One disadvantage to going with a converted printer is the fact that there's absolutely no warranty. Your warranty gets voided for that, because sublimation inks are not supposed to go in these printers. They're not supposed to go in the home printers. So first you have the Epson EcoTank 2800. This one prints up to legal paper, which is 8.5 by 14, I believe, and it costs about 200 bucks. It's not too bad. Then the other one is the Epson EcoTank 8550. The reason this one is a lot more expensive is because it also prints a lot bigger. So with this one, I believe you can go up to 13 by 19. Now, each converted sublimation printer has its own unique set of inks. So the ones you use for one model might not be compatible with the ones that you use for another. Epson in general, though, I think they are cross-compatible, or if that's even a word, I think you can mix and match the inks just because they're all pretty much the same thing. But one thing to keep in mind is with a printer like this one, you have also gray, which is, yeah. So this one shows gray and it has two blacks. In this case, whatever ink you use, they should have instructions on how to actually go about this. So they'll tell you either fill everything up with black or just skip one or whatever it is. Now, when it comes to the ink for converted sublimation printers, you can get them almost anywhere. You can get them from Amazon, or you can go directly to certain suppliers. So one of the most popular ones has to be Cosmos ink. From everything I've heard online, from reading all the different reviews and from reading on different forums, their ink is one of the most vibrant ones that you can find. Now, I personally never used them because when I had my converted sublimation printer, I hadn't heard of Cosmos ink. I ended up going with a different supplier, which I'll show you shortly, on Amazon. Now, with Cosmos ink, you can find ink for pretty much any converted sublimation printer, and even ink cartridges for the Sawgrass SG 400, the 800, the 500, or the one that I have, the 1000. Now, on Amazon for sublimation ink, just simply look for sublimation ink, and also make sure to put the model of your printer. I mean, as you can see here, it's actually really cheap. It's only 28 bucks for the ink versus what you would pay for, let's say, Sawgrass ink, which again, Sawgrass is a dedicated sublimation printer, which comes out to $308 for the entire set. You can see why a lot of people end up going the converted route. Now, when it comes to the different types of dedicated sublimation printers, there's two main ones. There's going to be the Sawgrass and there's going to be Epson. So I ended up going the Sawgrass route because when I decided to make the purchase, Epson was around, but they weren't being offered at Heat Transfer Warehouse. At least not that I can remember. And Heat Transfer Warehouse is actually my main supplier, and Sawgrass is also a really big name, so I decided, you know what? Let me just go with the Sawgrass. For the Sawgrass, they have the 500 and they have the 1000. Now the 500 prints up to, I believe, legal as well, just like the Epson EcoTank. But the one that I got, the SG1000, that one can print up to 13 by 19 if you have a bypass tray. If you don't have the bypass tray, which of course you have to pay separately for, then it could print up to 11 by 17. And that's what I like. I like oversized prints. So I wanted to get at a minimum a printing size of 11 by 17. Now, why go with a converted sublimation printer over a dedicated, or why go with a dedicated over a converted? Well, there's a few different things that you need to consider before actually making the jump. Me personally, I started with a converted sublimation printer. And if you have the option to, or if you really don't want to spend the over $1,000 for a dedicated sublimation printer, then you can go with a converted printer. Now, a few things about a converted printer. For one, you have no warranty. The moment you put sublimation ink on there, your warranty is gone. Two, you do have to do a few modifications. Sometimes you have to do a bit of maintenance as well. What I mean by modifications is you are most likely going to have to download an ICC profile, and then you're going to have to test a lot of different settings. So getting started can take a little bit longer. After some time, your printer might start to have some wear and tear. Now, this really depends on how much you use it, how well you take care of it, and a few other factors. But mine, after about a year, it started getting pizza wheels non-stop. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't get them to come off. They would stop for maybe 2 or 3 different prints, but then I had to re-clean everything, and it just got to be way too much of a hassle. So at that point, that's when I decided, you know what? I'm actually making money with sublimation. It's time to invest in a dedicated one. And that's when I started doing a bit more research, and I ended up going with the Sawgrass SG-1000. Now, a few things about dedicated printers is, for one, you have a full warranty. As long as you follow their rules and you do everything that they tell you to, like not use third-party inks, Sawgrass, supposedly it voids your warranty. A lot of people have confirmed that whenever they use a third-party ink, their warranty gets voided. They made an update for anybody that did use third-party inks. Their prints would come out with a huge watermark on them. That's kind of messed up. Like, come on. It's third-party inks. When it comes to inks for the Sawgrass sublimation printer, as you saw, an entire set is about $307. That's a lot of money.
No.
Granted, the ink does last a long time. It's still extremely overpriced in my opinion, especially compared to third-party inks that have pretty much the same quality. Personally, I've always used Sawgrass inks because at the end of the day, it's, you know, made by the manufacturer, and it's good quality. It's really good quality. I've never had any issues with it, and they do last a long time. In my opinion, it is worth spending the extra money for that type of quality, or to just not void your warranty. But aside from that, when it comes to actually setting it up, it's out of the box. It works. All you have to do is install a bit of software. You have to learn it a little bit, just like anything else. But after you get the learning curve down, then you're pretty much good to go. It's a lot quicker messing with the settings on a dedicated sublimation printer because there's a lot less, since, you know, everything's already supposed to be for sublimation. You just get a few different options, such as what type of material do you want to print on, metal or polyester, and what brand ink are you using, and what brand paper, let's say. So when it comes to paper, you can get your paper over at necoprints.com. I actually have a line of sublimation printer paper there. So if you want to check that out, just go ahead and check out necoprints.com. But aside from that quick promo, you can pretty much use any type of sublimation paper there is. I do not recommend you use regular printer paper because it will not hold the ink or release the ink the way it's supposed to. So the way sublimation works is you use your sublimation ink in your sublimation printer, again, whether that be converted or a dedicated printer, and you print your design on a sheet of sublimation paper. After that's done, typically what I do is I just let it dry for a little bit, and then the next thing you have to do is just apply heat. Now, the way you apply heat is really going to be dependent on what you're printing. So if you're printing a piece of cloth like this, you can just simply print on the paper, slap it on the heat press like we're going to do in a little bit, and press it. But if you're going to be sublimating on something like a tumbler, then the process is a little bit different. What you end up doing is, instead of pressing it on a regular heat press, you're going to go ahead and shrink wrap it and then throw it inside an oven. Now, there are dedicated presses for tumblers. They're really just called tumbler presses. And if you want to check those out, you can check out Heat Transfer Warehouse. All the different links that I'm talking about in this video are all going to be down in the description below. Quick disclaimer, they are affiliate links. So if you click on them and make a purchase, I do get a small commission. Now, the way sublimation works is when that ink is exposed to heat, it actually turns from a solid to a gas, and it transfers over to whatever's in front of it. So you print your sublimation print on paper, you put it on top of your garment, you apply heat to it, the ink itself turns into a gas, transfers over to the next substrate, and the process is done. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now, there are limitations to what you can print on. Primarily, it has to be either polyester or it has to have some sort of polyurethane coating. So you can't just sublimate on anything. You can't just sublimate on any tumbler. They have to be specific for sublimation. And when it comes to garments, you can't print on cotton. Remember that. You cannot sublimate on cotton. There are different hacks that you can use. I'm going to go over a few of them later on, but honestly, I don't recommend it. I don't like hacks that much. It's not sustainable. They take a lot longer than they should, and they cost a lot more than you would be making. So some of the pros, cons, and limitations to sublimation. As I mentioned earlier, you're limited to certain surfaces, but you're also limited to light colored garments or light colored pretty much anything. You can't sublimate on anything that's black or has a dark color. The reason is because the color is just going to be absorbed by those dark colors. When it comes to sublimation, you're only printing in CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. There is no white. Whenever you print sublimation, it's just like printing through any home printer. The printer is going to assume that everything is just going to have a white background, that everything is going to have a white base. So that's why there's no need for a white underbase. Now, if you were able to print white, such as in the case of DTF or DTG prints, then what happens in that case is the base layer, or the very bottom layer that's printed, is a white layer. So any ink that lands on top of that is going to stand out no matter of whatever surface you're printing on. In the case of sublimation, that doesn't happen. It only lays down the colors. There is no white. So that is why you can't print on black, because the colors are just going to be dark. There's not going to be that base layer that pretty much just shows off the colors and adds the brightness. Now, because of that, if you don't print on white, let's say if you print on a light green shirt, you can still sublimate on it and the colors will still somewhat pop, but you're going to notice that it has a green hue to it. It's going to take on the green because that's what it's assuming is the white. That's what it's going to use as its base. Now, quickly going into dedicated products. For one, you have things like Easy Subli, which is pretty much just heat transfer vinyl that you apply to the shirt and you sublimate on top of that. That's pretty much it. Aside from that, they also have different sprays that you can use. I've never used them because I've read pretty bad reviews about them. Some people swear by them. They say they're great, but a lot of other people say that they start to wash away after a few washes, which I can see that. It's a spray. It's not going to be permanent on the shirt. So me personally, I've always stayed away from sprays. Also, I never used Easy Subli because it's pretty expensive. I've heard really good things about it because it's supposed to really make the colors pop. It's supposed to be a pretty good alternative to these different hacks and a good workaround to the limitations of sublimation. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing as sublimating on heat transfer vinyl. Now, when it comes to sublimating on heat transfer vinyl, that is a hack. And honestly, it's not fully worth it in my opinion. But if you have a few different shirts that you need to make, if you have something for a family event, you know, something you need to do for your kids' school tomorrow, you can get away with this. So when it comes to sublimating on heat transfer vinyl, you do have a few limitations. For one, you can't sublimate on basic heat transfer vinyl. It needs to be specialty. Some of the ones that you can sublimate on are going to include flock, glitter, glow in the dark, clear, and there's a few others. But after a few washes, they kind of start to smudge. They don't really look too good after a little bit. And again, I'm not a fan of hacks, but in a pinch, they work. Okay, so enough talking, let's start demonstrating. So we're gonna go ahead and start designing and printing our pair of boxers. So these are a pair of boys boxers. The reason I went with these is because I can fit whatever I want to print in an 11x17 sheet. I want to print the whole thing as one. Now for this, I have the template ready. We have it imported over at Photoshop. And if you want to check these out, or if you want to get the template itself, you can do so through the Silky Socks website, or I believe also Heat Transfer Warehouse. Either way, remember, all of the links will be down in the description below. Now to get the actual design, we're going to use Vexels. Now Vexels is a subscription service. And what I like about this is just the fact that their images are mature. They're not corny. They're not childish. They all look really good. They look like they're made with legitimate artists. Unlike a few other services that I've tried that have some really strange images, like they just look corny. They're really cheesy. Vexels is really good. They have some really good images. So let's go ahead and go with pattern. Actually, let's look for a dinosaur pattern. Okay, so here they have quite a few actually. So I'm digging this one right here. I'm also digging this one right here. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so we're gonna go with this one, or are we gonna go with this one? I like this one. All right, so from here, all we have to do is download. Okay, so sometimes they come with a PSD file or a Photoshop file. Sometimes they don't. In this case, it came with an AI file, but I don't use Adobe Illustrator. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take the PNG file and I'm gonna import it over to Photoshop. So what I'm gonna do with the boxers themselves, first is separate the boxers from the background. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select the background here, select inverse, and layer view copy. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I don't do it the proper way, but I do it my way and it works for me. So just do whatever works for you. Okay, so going back to our dinosaur image, these are space dinosaurs, but there's no space background. I don't know why. So let's go ahead and make one really fast. So I'm creating a new layer over here. I'm going to select that layer, and now I'm going to use generative fill. I love Photoshop AI because all I have to do is put here galaxies and stars, and then it's going to autofill everything with galaxies and stars. All right, so that is actually really good, but it came up all the way on top, so let's put it towards the bottom, and that looks good. I like it. Let's see what else I came up with, because it usually gives us 3 different options. Okay, that one's good too, and I actually think that one might go best. So either this one or this one. No, definitely this one. All right, so this is the one that we're going to use. Let's go ahead and put this over on our boxers template. But first, actually, let me go ahead and merge the layers. There you go. So it's all just one layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it up to the waistline, because that's pretty much all I can get with this single paper. Then I'm going to take my dinosaur layer and click on create clipping mask. So that's more or less what it's going to look like. Now this template is already sized to the size of the boxers. So to make things easier, all I'm going to do now is I'm simply just going to go ahead and click on new. I'm going to make my 11 by 17 sheet of paper. So if I had left it at 300 dpi, while this one is 290, I believe, on this one it would come out a little bit smaller, just because our canvas is a little bit bigger. Now to make things easier for myself and really just ensure overall coverage for everything that I want to print on, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the clipping mask, and this is already sized to the way I want it. So what I did is simply just lower the opacity so I can see the boxers inside. Then on the dinosaur image, I'm just going to delete the edges, and that's what I'm going to print. I'm going to print 2 of these sheets, one for the front and one for the back. So since I'm using Sawgrass Print Manager, I'm just going to go ahead and print it from here. Make it landscape, Sawgrass Print Manager, and print. So what this does is it will actually bring up the Sawgrass Print Manager, which then sends it to the Sawgrass SG-1000. So this is what the Print Manager looks like if you're using Sawgrass. I always have polyester with paper text print R, high quality. Those are settings that I literally never change, whether I'm printing a tumbler, a shirt, or a mouse pad, whatever it may be, because this is always giving me the same and best results. From there, all we have to do is click on print. Okay, so next up we have our print over here. We got some heat resistant tape, and we have our boxers. So now let's go ahead and put these on top like so. Try not to drag them, because if you do, you could potentially smear the ink. All right, so we have it like this. Now it's not going to cover all the way to the top, but that's okay. This is just for demonstration purposes only. So let's get some heat tape. Let's tape it up right here, and pretty much we're just going to be taping up all of the different corners so it doesn't come loose when we flip it. Right, so now we can go ahead and flip it upside down, cover it up, and now we press for 45 seconds. All right, 45 seconds are up. Flip it slowly. Let's see how this came out. See all the excess here on the sides. Oh, I think this might have flipped, and it did. Oh, we totally messed up. I needed to tape that down right there. Well, thankfully this isn't for customers, it's just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so it looks like that could have actually caused some more pressure issues. So, all right, we messed up on the front, so let's just go ahead and do the back. But as you can see, this part came out really good. All right, let's try this again, shall we? Make sure I got everything as flat as possible. Trying to feel it out through here. Looks like we're good to go on that part. Just go ahead and press on the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give it a bit more pressure. Okay, so I increased the pressure a little bit. So let's see how that comes out. I'll hold it down just to make sure it doesn't pop up. Oh, there we go. I think I increased it a little bit too much. Okay, now this one came out a lot better. So as you can see, this is the side that we messed up. This accidentally folded in, causing uneven pressure, which seems to have affected this part as well. But on the other side, we made sure that that didn't happen, and we increased the pressure on the heat press as well. So that way there was more pressure being laid down on top of this. Now this gave us a way more even print, a lot better colors, and overall, this is what we're aiming for. This is what it's supposed to look like. Of course, if we just printed it a little bit bigger, we could fill it up all the way to the top. But considering the fact that this is just for demonstration purposes, I think this came out pretty good. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. And that's pretty much all there is to sublimating. Now, how can you make some money off of it? Well, there's a few different ways that you can do that. For one, of course, if you're starting a crafting business, you can pretty much sell custom items or your own branded items. You can print all of your own designs on whatever you're selling or whatever you're offering. You can sell online, you can go to trade shows, you can sell customs, you can sell your own design. And on the other hand, you can sell the transfers themselves. Now, of course, if you sell just one or two, you're not really gonna make a lot of money off of that. You can probably sell them for $1 or $2. But the real money comes when you start selling larger amounts. So maybe 10, 20, 30, 100, things like that. And that's pretty much all there is to it. As you saw, it was super easy to sublimate this, of course with a little bit of trial and error, but just like pretty much in any business, you have to mess up to learn the right way of doing things. And that was the Neko Prints crash course on sublimation. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Let me know if there's anything that you think I missed or something that you want me to cover in a future video. I'm thinking of making the crash course series where I'm going to give you a crash course on all of the different ways of printing, including heat transfer vinyl, regular vinyl, DTG, DTF, all of the most common ways of printing. If that's something that interests you, then again, let me know down in the comments below. And also make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you did find this video helpful, if you found it entertaining, if you found it informational, please make sure you smash that like button, and also make sure you share this to anybody you think that might need it. Huge thank you to everyone for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Once again, my name is Mario with Neko Prints, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.